Hello and thanks for joining this Getting Started with Payroll webinar. I'm Nathan from the support team, and today I'll be guiding you through setting up and running payroll in FreeAgent for the first time. Don't worry if you haven't used payroll at all yet, as this webinar will give you all the information you need to get going. Please stay tuned till the end of the webinar, where there will be some information and extra resources to get you off to a flying start with payroll. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have throughout the webinar using the Q&A, and you'll be invited to leave some ratings and feedback at the end, so please do let us know how you found today's webinar. Firstly, I'd just like to point out some of the key features of payroll in FreeAgent. FreeAgent supports running payroll on a monthly basis and can be used in all account types except landlord, non-UK accounts, and any accounts using the cash basis. You can also close your payroll in FreeAgent, for example, if you're closing your business and no longer employ staff. The payroll area is found here in the menu across the top of the page under My Money and then Payroll. If you can't see the payroll option, then it means you haven't added any employee users yet, but we'll come to that shortly. Before you can start submitting payroll through FreeAgent, you'll need to get yourself set up with HMRC as an employer so that you can start making your submissions. If you've worked with an accountant before and they were filing for you up until now, you will need to make sure PAYE is added as a tax to your HMRC business tax account before you can submit to HMRC. Now, once you're all set up with HMRC, the first thing you will need to do in FreeAgent is enter your PAYE references by going to your company details. Here's how to do that. I'll just start by navigating to the business name in the top right of the page, and then settings, and then company details is in the top section of the page. Here we can see FreeAgent is asking for some references for your payroll. You should be able to find these on any letters from HMRC about your payroll or by logging into your Government Gateway business tax account. I've already got these entered, so I'll just click Save Changes at the bottom of the page. The next thing is to make sure your payroll settings are correct by navigating back to Settings and then Payroll. On this page, you can choose whether you will be paying your tax and national insurance payments to HMRC monthly or quarterly, and whether FreeAgent will be claiming the employment allowance for you or not. The final section is for automatic enrollment for pensions. You can choose how the pensionable pay should be calculated by default here by selecting these boxes. I'll just choose basic pay for now. And if you use Now Pensions, you can click Yes here and enter a bit more information. And if you don't use Now Pensions, you can just tick No. There's also an option here to enable payslip notifications, which will send automated emails to your employees with a link to view their payslip in FreeAgent. You can learn more about this by clicking the link to the knowledge base here. When we're happy, we can just click Save Changes. Next, you will need to add all of the employees and directors as users to your account before you can set them up as employees. You can do this by navigating back to Settings again, and then Users is in the top section. I'll add another user just now by clicking on New User in the top right, and then I'll fill out their details, making sure to pick the correct role for them. If they would like to log in and see their own payslips and P60s, they'll need to have at least level 2 permission. And when we're happy, we can click Create New User at the bottom. Now we've got all the settings sorted and added our employee as a user, we can start preparing payroll by navigating to My Money in the top menu and then Payroll. If you don't see the payroll option, then it means you haven't added any employee users yet, so you might need to just go back a step and get those added. This page asks us when we would like to start preparing payroll. It will always default to the current month we are in. As you can see, it says month 3 here. This can be changed if you need to go back to a previous month. We'll start preparing from month 1. I just need to change the month here and check that the year is correct. And then choose the first employee to add. So let's just choose John Smith here and click Set Up Payroll. To start adding employees to your payroll, we need to set each user up with a payroll profile. This is where all the important information about your employees is held so that their tax and national insurance is handled correctly. I'll start by filling out their personal details. Now, as you can see, I've chosen to start by creating a profile for John Smith, which means I have to enter John Smith's details into this profile. Don't get mixed up and enter the details for another user. Otherwise, Sue's payslips will be under John's name. So always use the correct profile for the employee that you're adding. I'll work down the page, making sure to fill out all the details, paying close attention to the boxes with the red asterisk, as this indicates that the information is required. If their national insurance number had been entered into the user profile, it will be populated here automatically. If not, then it can still be filled in here too. Now I need to enter some information about when they started working for my business. If I'd been employing them for a while and I was moving to FreeAgent from another software, I would choose an existing employee. If they had a payroll ID in my previous software, I'd need to enter that exactly here in the payroll ID box. It's very important to use the same payroll ID, as HMRC use this to keep all their records, and the wrong ID can cause problems on their end. If no ID was used previously, you can just leave it blank. For an existing employee, if I wasn't starting from month 1, I'd also need to select whether they've been paid in this tax year or not. If they had, I'd enter the total pay and deductions for the year so far, which I can take from my previous payroll software. This ensures all the future payslips and tax calculations are correct, and their P60 at the end of the year, or the P45 if they leave mid-year, they will all be correct. As this person is a new employee of mine, I will just choose a new employee for the purposes of this demo, and then I'll enter a start date. For new employees, there's 3 choices available for their starting declaration. This gives HMRC information about any other work they've done in this tax year or any benefits they've received. If you're not sure, HMRC have an online starter checklist to help you choose. This is the employee's first job since the 6th of April, so I'm just going to choose option A. Next, we need to tell HMRC how their national insurance contributions should be calculated. Now, if they're not a director of the company, you would just choose employee. If they are a director of the company, you'd need to choose which of these methods to use. There's some guidance on the page here if you're not sure which to choose, but please check with your accountant, as they might have some advice for you. Directors would also need to select their directorship start date if they started midway through the year. Next, we need to give information about the hours the employee works, and a payroll ID. You can leave this blank if you like, but if you're moving from another software, make sure you copy that same ID over. Also, whether you enter a payroll ID or leave it blank, you should leave it that way for the rest of the year, as changing it mid-year can cause problems with HMRC. So I'm just going to leave this one blank. Next, some information about their tax calculations. If you have your employee's P45, then you'll be able to take their tax code from that document. If you don't have a P45 to work with, then refer to the starter checklist to see what to use. Tax codes should only ever be changed after being instructed to do so by HMRC. If you're not sure about this stage, it's best to check with HMRC or your accountant to keep you right. These details are important to get right because it can result in your staff being taxed too much or too little. The National Insurance Category Letter also needs to be selected. This can be found using HMRC's list of categories. But please remember, the National Insurance Category Letter is not found on a person's national insurance number. It's a category related to things like age and investment zones, and there's been some changes to these categories recently, so please double check this to make sure the right category letter is used. There's also options about whether they have student loan deductions too. Now there's some information about leaving details. If this was the employee's last month in employment, we can tick yes to this option and enter a leaving date. This goes to HMRC along with their final pay, and a P45 is produced. This particular employee isn't a leaver, so we can just tick no. Now we have the option to enter their monthly pay. You can enter this into the payroll profile here if you like, which is useful if they have a regular amount to pay each month, as that will be the default amount on this person's payslip. If they work irregular shifts or the pay changes month by month, you can just leave this area blank and then just enter the pay on their payslips later on. I'll add £2,000 here into this person's monthly basic pay, just as an example, as I expect them to earn that amount each month. At the bottom of the page, we need some information about their pension contributions. There are options depending on whether they are not yet eligible, have opted out, or are ineligible. If they are making pension contributions, you would select yes, making contributions, which will open up more options for you here. You can allow FreeAgent to automatically calculate the pension contributions by ticking yes here, and then providing some more information about how the contributions should be calculated. So FreeAgent supports the net pay, relief at source, and salary sacrifice pension scheme types. If you're not sure which one to select, your pension scheme provider will be able to tell you which one to use. If you choose to have FreeAgent calculate the pension contributions automatically, you can enter the employee and employer percentages into these boxes. The pensionable pay options are also here, so you can select which type of pay the pension contributions should be calculated from. And when we're happy, we can just click Create Payroll Profile at the bottom of the page. Now we can see that month one payroll has been prepared for us, and we can see the employee's pay, tax, national insurance contributions, and how much is due to HMRC. Let's click Continue Month 1 Payroll to make some final checks before filing this to HMRC. In step 1, we enter the date we will pay the staff. HMRC requires us to tell them on or before the day we pay our staff, or else it's considered late. So if this date is in the past, we need to give HMRC a reason on why it's late. FreeAgent will default to the 25th of the month, but you can change that here if you need to. In step 2, we see here the pay and deductions, tax and national insurance. And all these figures have been pulled through from the payroll profile we set up earlier. We can edit the payslips if we need to from here by clicking Edit Payslip. For example, this employee actually worked fewer hours this month than I expected, so I will edit their payslip by clicking on Edit Payslip. You can see this looks quite similar to the payroll profile we looked at earlier, and we can edit the pay, statutory pay, and other things like bonuses, and this will only change the details for this month's pay. The payroll profile won't be updated. When we're happy, we just click Save Changes at the bottom of the page. Finally, once the numbers are right, we need to double check all the details. Taking a few minutes to check everything over can avoid lost time later on making corrections to HMRC. There's a handy checklist here at the bottom of the page to help go through all the details. So we know this employee isn't a leaver, so that's all good. We haven't changed their tax code or student loans since setting them up. Now we're taking a closer look at all of the pay. Everything looks good except the pension figures look a little lower than I expected. I must have entered these figures incorrectly when setting up the profile earlier. Let's have a look at the payslip by clicking on Edit Payslip and go down to the pension section, and here at the bottom I see the pension contributions are set to 2%. This was supposed to be 5% actually, but that's fine. If I need to, I can enter the changes now and change the percentages to 5%. Which looks more like what I expected. I click Save Changes. Now the figures look much better for the pension contributions, and much more like what I intended. But I still need to go back to the payroll profile and correct that so that it pulls through onto future payslips too. I'll do that just now by going to My Money in the top and then Payroll. And then I'll click Edit Profile next to John's name here. And I scroll down to the pension area to make the changes that I need. And when I'm happy, I just click Update Payroll Profile. Remember, the payroll profile is the template used when creating payslips. So if you want something to apply to all future payslips, then make sure you update the payroll profile. Now I'll navigate back to Continue Month 1 Payroll, and this time I'm happy everything is correct, and I can run payroll at the bottom of the page. Clicking Run and Report Month 1 Payroll will open up a box with some final information about what we're submitting to HMRC. When we're happy, we can enter the Government Gateway credentials and submit this to HMRC. When entering these details, please check that you're using the right set of credentials and not using personal details instead of the business account ones, for example. Sometimes password managers and autofill can enter the wrong details, so if you're having any trouble at all, it's best to type these details in. Now for this webinar, we won't actually file anything, but instead click Don't Report Month 1 Payroll to HMRC. This doesn't file anything at all, but finishes the payroll. You might use this option if you're filing using another software and just want to show the figures in FreeAgent, or if you're moving to FreeAgent midway through the year and want to mirror earlier months before you start filing. I'll just click run month one payroll, and now we're done. Now we can see month one is complete, and we know how much we owe to HMRC and when it's due. This will also be seen on the tax timeline area of the overview page. Now let's add another employee in month two. I'll click add an employee here over on the right of the page. And this time I'm going to add Sue Jones, and we can see her name here because we've already set this person up as a user. It's just the same as before. I'll start filling out the details for Sue like so. I know this employee has had another job since April, so they have to choose option B for the starter declaration and enter their national insurance number. Also, I know that they are a director of the company, and I can choose how their national insurance contributions should be calculated, and my accountant told me this should be the director basis. I'll also choose a employee start date and the directorship start date too. For the national insurance calculations, there's two director methods here, and they work in different ways. If you're not sure which one to use, check with HMRC or your accountant to see which one is best for you, as this can't be easily changed later. I'll just keep filling out their details like so. HMRC needs to know what the total pay in their previous job was. That way their tax is calculated correctly. This can only be taken from their P45, and we need to know the total pay before tax and the total tax in the previous employment, and we can enter these two figures into the box here. The rest of the profile, it's just the same as before. I'll add £2,000 just as the basic monthly pay. And just for this demo, I'll say that they've opted out of the pension scheme. When we're happy, we can just click Create Payroll Profile at the bottom of the page. And then we can click Prepare Month 2 Payroll. Unfortunately, my first employee from earlier has taken some time away for travel, and they've now left the employment. So what I need to do is inform HMRC about their leaving date. To do this, I need to go back to their payroll profile, which we created earlier, and click on Edit Profile. And then I scroll down to the question, is this employee leaving in the next pay run? Here. I'll select yes, and then select a leaving date. And then click Update Payroll Profile at the bottom of the page. Now when I click on Continue Month 2 Payroll, we can see their leaving date here. Again, before we file, we have to check everything over, and a closer look at that leaver's payslip makes me think it's not quite right. They left before the end of the month, so they didn't get a full month's pay, and there's also some holiday pay too. So I'll need to edit the figures on the payslip now. I'll just click Edit Payslip and overwrite the basic pay to make sure it's the right pay. Getting the details right for leavers is important, as once they leave the payroll, it can be tricky to make corrections later. When we're happy with the payslip, we just click Save Changes at the bottom of the page. I'll check the new employee's details again to make sure the figures are all correct. And the national insurance contribution basis is correct. That's set to director here. Everything looks good for this one, so I'll mark this one as filed again by clicking on Don't Report Month 2 Payroll to HMRC, and then Run Month 2 Payroll. For the employee who left, we can find their P45 by navigating to My Money in the top menu and Salary. We can change the names here and then make sure we're looking in the right year. And then we see their P45 up in the top right of the page. If this was the year end, so month 12, and the employee didn't leave, we would see their P60 here instead. If you're in an auto-enrollment pension scheme, then you can find a helpful report on the main payroll page to export the details you need to make your submissions. We find this by navigating to My Money and Payroll, and you can export the different reports by clicking the button here over to the right of the page, Export Report, and you'll see here there's an option for auto-enrollment. You can refer to the figures inside this file to help with reporting to your pension provider. When I come to pay my staff, I'll need to make the bank transfers to their bank accounts and explain those bank transactions in FreeAgent. The figures I need to pay attention to are the net pay figures. This is the amount of money I need to transfer to each employee. Let's click on month 2 to see how much we need to pay. Here we can see the net pay figures. That's the amount we need to pay to each person. And the amount of money we need to pay to HMRC is over on the right here. We can see the amount due to each employee and how much is due to HMRC on the balance sheet as well. And I can see this by navigating to Accounting in the top menu, and then Reports, and then Balance Sheet. What's owed to the employees and to HMRC is showing in the liabilities section here, because until we actually pay the staff and pay HMRC, it's considered a debt that the business owes. When we pay the money out of the bank and explain the bank transactions in FreeAgent using the right categories, the debt will be cleared. So let's do that just now. If you've set up a bank feed already, you'll see these showing up in FreeAgent after you've made the transfers to the staff. I've already paid these staff, so I'll find those transactions by navigating to Banking in the top menu, and then Bank Accounts, and then I'll go to these Unexplained Transactions. Here I can see the transfer to the employees. I'll use the explanation money paid to user, and then select the person, and then select the net salary and bonuses category, and then select explain transaction. And I'll do this for all the employees. And what this will do is make sure that all the entries in my accounts are correct for this month. We can track each employee's payslips and how much we've paid them by navigating to My Money in the top menu, and then Salary. Here we can see how much the employee was due and how much we paid them, and the dates for those transactions too. I'll also need to pay the money that's due to HMRC. This can be found easily by navigating to the main payroll page. And you can see what's due here, and you can also go into each month, and over on the right you can see how much is due. Alternatively, you can see how much is owed to HMRC by going to Taxes in the top menu, and then the PAYE and NI option. This page shows how much is owed to HMRC for the tax and national insurance. Once I've paid HMRC, the payment will show up in the bank feed just like the others, and I'll need to explain it. So I'll navigate to banking and then bank accounts. And here I've got one unexplained transaction. And I'll need to use the explanation. The type is a payment. And the category is in the taxes section, the PAYE NI category, and then explain the transaction. The payment will then show up in the paid column of this PAYE and national insurance page here. These will be the steps to follow each time we run payroll, and the important things to remember are: make sure you've got all of your staff included before you run your payroll. Don't forget about any leavers, and remember to double check all the figures before you submit. If there's anything you're not sure about, please check before you file to HMRC. And while the FreeAgent support team are not licensed to give advice or to replace your accountant, we will help where we can to make your payroll run smoothly. And I've mentioned in this webinar a few times about checking and double checking before you file to HMRC, but we do understand that from time to time there may be corrections that you need to make. Let's imagine, for example, I forgot to add a bonus for Sue in month 2 of this tax year. I can show you now how you can make this correction in FreeAgent, and what I'd need to do is navigate to month 2 in the payroll area here. Then click on View Payslip next to Sue's name. What we need to do is edit the original payslip to show the right figures. This won't send anything to HMRC just yet, but when you run next month's payroll, the updated year-to-date figures will be submitted to HMRC. Here in the top right of this page, I can see a button to edit the payslip. I'll click on that, and then I'll just edit the figures I need. For example, I'll add a bonus of £500 here. When I'm happy, I can click Save Changes at the bottom of the page. As we can see on the payslip now, all the figures are updated, and when I prepare month 3, these new updated year-to-date figures will be sent to HMRC. This is just one scenario where you can make corrections in FreeAgent, but if you have more complex corrections that you need to make, such as correcting in a previous tax year or handling corrections for a leaver, please refer to our knowledge base or to the support team so that we can advise on how you might be able to do that in FreeAgent. There's lots of articles on our knowledge base which can help with running payroll, and you can find these by clicking on the knowledge base link at the bottom of any page. Here's the knowledge base, and we can search for query here or just browse by the help topics. And as you can see, there's a section just for payroll. In this, there's lots of articles which can help with all aspects of running payroll, such as this one here about making corrections in a previous tax year. Our bot Ruby will also serve articles via the blue help button in the bottom right of our website or when you're logged into your FreeAgent account. If you can't find the help you need, then you'll see the option to chat to one of our support team during office hours or leave a message. Alternatively, you can find our contact details on our website. I hope you found this webinar helpful, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a great day.